drop by. I'm glad you could. Come in and spend a few minutes and visit at the Murder Club. We have lots of things to see and hear. With respect to the novels that I have written, particularly the murder mystery novels, I have tried not just to write whodunits, but also explore some other themes throughout the book that run parallel to the murder itself. For example, in Singularity, we have a situation where there is the Dr. Soper ends up in a coma, and I have wondered many times what happens to a human being and his mind if he's in a coma and unable to relate to the outside world. And in the Sign of the Nun, I've tried to put you inside the head of a serial killer and what might have motivated them and what caused them to be what they are. In the Sophia, it was a case really of trying to find out what was the real motivation behind the Sophia. What were they up to? There was an implication that perhaps drugs were involved, which again, you'd have to read the book to find that out. We Johnny Norrie, the title comes from a nonsense rhyme that my mother used to tell my children when they were very small, and it drove them absolutely crazy. It went something like this: do you want to hear a story about wee Johnny Norrie? He went up the stairs and in the wee dory. And that's the end of the story. And the kids would go nuts at that particular point because they wanted the end of it. Well, there's a little bit of that in the wee Johnny Norrie story. Now we move on to the young adult books. And I set the first one in ancient Rome, just after the assassination of Julius Caesar, when the country was in tremendous turmoil. Two families are dispossessed because they were on the wrong side of the political divide. Their properties were seized and the children thrown into the street. Now the two families lived about 130 kilometers apart, and none of the children on either side were aware of what had happened to the other family. But they just knew that they had to reach one another to see if they could be taken in, not knowing that the other parents were also in jail. And it's a road story that involves mythology, magic, and some life lessons, I would hope. I wrote it and based 5 of the characters on my 5 grandsons. That's a luxury that a lot of people don't have, but I enjoyed doing it. The kids liked it well enough that I followed it up with a sequel called Kush. And Kush is now no longer set in ancient Rome. They have moved on to Africa by way of Egypt, and they are sailing, 3 of them are sailing up the Nile in a felucca, and the 2 other cousins are in the presence of the Black Prince Kashta, who was the crown prince of Kush, the country of Kush, and he is undertaking to rescue the 3 boys, unaware that this is a conspiracy to get him back into his own country. I was struck as I wrote each of these books at how big a role specific buildings seem to play in each of the books. As an example, you can see behind me here we have the Soper Research Building, where Arnold Soper created what he felt was a vaccine that was going to change the world. Dreams were never realized in his lifetime. And now behind me you will see Dunstan Estates, which is a building that housed a strange religious cult known as the Sophia. A grisly murder took place on the grounds during the middle of a storm. And then we have the Sign of Nun, where the murder takes place, the first murder takes place in the Soldiers' Tower on the campus of the University of Toronto. Again, an iconic building that you can see behind me that played a big part in this particular story. And then we have Wee Johnnie Norrie, and you can see the luxury high-rise behind me, and it's an oddity from the standpoint that the dead body was found in this building, had been in the apartment dead for 2 years. Now this is something that you figure that a writer makes up, but I must tell you that it is based on fact, not the murder itself, but the fact that there was a dead body found after 2 years in a luxury condo and nobody in the building knew about it. Of course, in Perusia, what is Rome without their buildings? And you can see behind me some shots of the city of Rome and the surrounding areas. And then, of course, as they moved on to Egypt, one of the most striking things is the temple at Abu Simbel, and the giant statues of Ramses. What I found curious, and I'm sure you might as well, is if you were to look in the upper left-hand corner of the monolithic structure, you will see a row of what apparently are chimpanzees. And you might ask yourself, what in the world would they be doing up there? Well, you'd have to read the book to find out. Of course, that's not the only way you could find out, but it is a way that I would prefer you find out. Have a look and see what you think. At any rate, thanks again. Come back soon, spend some time, and read some books. Thank you. Goodbye.